This is a dream partly about what happens when you don't follow the rules for a society in which you live, and partly how important it is to sometimes find a way to make things work out. The dream starts with me returning from a trip, only to be told that a close friend of mine has had a nervous breakdown. This friend is a lovely guy who adores cats just like I do. He got his cat about the same time as I got my beautiful little Dar cat. His partner liked cats too, but when Ral, my friend, started adopting more cats from a nearby wild area, his partner, Den, he was not really very happy with him. They'd been very happy together, but Den didn't want to go against the law of the land and have many cats. They could have had just one cat each without getting into trouble, but the number of cats had climbed to 27. It jumped rapidly when 2 cats arrived pregnant, but it was already climbing even at that point. Well, cute. No one could deny they were cute. They were all friendly and adorable. But it was going against the rules. And Den knew that Ral could not keep the cats inside indefinitely. People would find out. And so after much discussion, debate, fighting, whatever you might call it, Den left. That was when Ral had the nervous breakdown. As soon as I could, I went to his place to check on him, but he wasn't there. He'd been taken away for medical treatment. There was only one man there when I arrived, and he was from the animal control department. Now in Tantal, animal control does not mean the poor creature will likely be put to death, as it does in this terrible world. It actually means that the creature or creatures will be removed from where they are currently illegally residing, and they'll be returned to their natural habitat. Only problem was that some of these cats were born in the house, so they didn't even know what it was like to be in the wild. I tried to get the control officer to wait till I could sort it out, but there was no negotiating with him. I got him to at least agree to let me know where the cats were going to be released, and he did. They were going to be taken to a nearby cat retreat. Phew, I thought, at least the cats can be visited, and of course the cats will be well fed and looked after. So then I went to visit my friend, and he had some visitors there. He looked fairly normal, but I hadn't seen him when he'd had his breakdown, so I don't know how bad he had been. But I did know that Ral really, really loved Den, and when Den left, he just couldn't cope. When the medics arrived to take him, he thought it would be okay because his neighbours would look after the cats, which they did, but the medics had notified animal control. He clearly did not know what had happened yet to his cats, and since he was already going through so much, I chose not to tell him. Well, not yet, at least. My next stop was my brother. I talked to him about it, and he said the rules are the rules. If he doesn't like it, he's free to leave Tantal. I was sad, but not defeated. As I mentioned in my episode called The Cat Gardens, in the very early days, Tantal was led by Uran, my brother, and he wasn't very keen on having animals living amongst us. But eventually he did agree to us having animal companions. And Ven and Bess of the Animal and Primitive Studies University decided to build a retreat for viewing specifically cats. And after that, others soon followed, and then there were retreats for meeting dogs and birds and, well, all kinds of animals. The keeper of the retreats always lived on the top level, and they were there permanently in order to look after both the animals and the visitors that came to the retreat. So after a few days of thinking things through, I went back to see my brother and told him that I had an idea to create a new retreat. He essentially agreed in concept, but I would need the approval of the University of Animal and Primitive Studies. So off I went. It was lovely visiting Qatar, but I was on a mission, so I went straight to the main lecture area to locate one of the leaders, either Bella of Ven, otherwise known as Ven, Best, or Nibs. I found Best, and she thought it was a great idea. So all I had to do now was get the location approved and, of course, get it built. My next trip was to the Building and Mining Institute, and a team was immediately dispatched to the area. The place was ready 3 months later. My next step was to help my friend to retrieve his cats. So we went to the location they had been dispatched to, and as I mentioned, it was an existing retreat, and so the cats were very comfortable and well fed. The only problem was that 2 of the cats had actually chosen someone else who had been visiting the retreat. Luckily, my friend was not upset by the news. On the contrary, he said, if the cat is happy, then he is happy. Phew. Anyway, he called out to his remaining cats, and most came over, and others just watched suspiciously from a distance. We collected up the ones who wanted to go with him and flew to the new location. The cats had been through so much, quite an ordeal really, leaving their home, going to the first retreat without their human, and then now finally being delivered to a new retreat with their human. There were no established cats there yet, so even though there were cats in the area, these were actually going to be the first cats in the retreat. They settled quickly, both Ral and cats, and we returned later in the week to see if any more of his reticent companions now wished to join him. And they did. So having retrieved all cats and settled them into their new home, I set about on the last part of my plan. I went to visit Den. Den was a real stickler for the rules, but he loved Ral dearly. It pained him that he'd abandoned Ral, but he could not resolve the conflict of how to continue with Ral, but not be doing things that were illegal. But once I explained to him what had transpired, he cried, partly from the guilt of what Ral had been through, partly for the cats. He loved them too very dearly. But mostly he cried because he never wanted to do anything illegal in order to live happily with Ral and the cats. And now he could live happily with them. He couldn't wait to be reunited with Ral and the cats, so he packed up his stuff on the assumption that he would be forgiven. And so off we went to the new cat retreat. As always, we landed on the roof. Ral wasn't expecting anyone to visit, and so he immediately came out to greet us. The joy on his face when he saw Den was a clear indicator that all was forgiven. The 2 hugged as the cats wound themselves around, purring around their legs. I'm happy to say that what started off as a nightmare ended up with a very happy ending. The retreat was popular, and more cats joined the group. Kittens were in abundance, and yet more tantals were chosen by cats to be their companions.